Oh, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue to section 8.5 in chapter 8. Last lecture period, we're talking about making three separate test server, and each one have their own so-called count-based value. And also, we make a input node list, and also in the output nodes of registration, we using a selection rule first, based on which low, so-called station low. Station low, like we talking about before, including number of entity travel on this path, the number of entity in the input buffer, and the number of entity in the processing queue. So all three added together, we call the associated station load. And this we're going to select the one who has the least, and also we have a so-called condition, and the condition is the candidate server value active is not in place, which means we don't have value for that server. Next, we're going to do some trick and demonstrate how to using add-on process. First, we're going to define in a string, actually, a variable called tester status. Okay. And this tester status, actually, instead of it is a scalar, and we're going to make it a vector of 3. Okay, one for each one of them. And initial value is called available. Since the string is basically a tag on what type of it. So this is tester. So we're going to see that 3 of them, all of them going to be available to begin with. And here we're going to do only for tester 1 for now. So here we're going to create a generic process. Okay. Here we're going to call process for data entry. Okay. Initially, what we do is we're just going to do 2 assign with 1 delay. Very simple. And the first assign is assign the label to data entry. Okay. And then delay for a period of time. This is 3 to 6 minutes. Data entry, for example, and this is the time for delay, random, uniform, between 3 to 6 minutes. Sorry, 3 to 6 minutes. Okay. And this is going to be minutes. All right. And assign the status back to available. Okay. First, we're going to assign the so-called tester status. Okay. Of course, this is for first tester, so this is first one, and the value will be data entry. Okay. And for this part, I'm going to reset it back to available. So test the status, and for the first entry, we're going to set it to available. Okay. And every time we run this, we're going to run add-on process. After processing, we're going to run that process data entry. Okay. I'm going to save and run. Oops, sorry. Need to put a data label up here. So since it's a model level state variable, so it's not attached to any of this state variable tester. So we're going to go for animation, get a status label. I'm going to put it right here. Okay. And what this guy is tester status. Tester status. All right. Which is 1. Okay. The first one on this tester status. Let's run this real quick. Initially, this is available. Change this background. So you see after the process is done, it will turn to data entry for a period of time, then move on. Okay, I'm going to change this to a little bit more fancy color. Okay, so you see that this thing on my example. Couple things to remember is first, this is when you run this in the data center. Afterward, I'm going to pause there. Okay, if you see currently the station is in data entry process. However, this entity is now moving on, so the applicants stay in the test center while the data entry is processed. This is probably not what we want. What we want is actually the data entry. During the data entry process, only the tester itself is processing the data entry. The applicant is supposed to move on. So how we're going to resolve that problem? And I'm going to come here. Instead of running over here in after process, we're going to run it on exit. Okay. So just make sure the entity is moving on. See that one more time. Okay, the entity is moving on, and while the data processing is ongoing. However, the next entity will come in to take possession of the testing station. So this is also not what we want. So we need to adding certain still seize the tester resources to prevent the next applicant incoming. So we're going to modify this a little bit. We're going to still seize okay, we need to stop the simulation. We're going to seize the tester still over here and release them after the delay. However, we're going to seize the tester over here. I cannot use the current entity, okay? All right. We cannot using the current entity. Instead of using the associated object, which is the object, a token for the current entity, we're going to pass on this to a parent object, which means I'm passing on the C's ownership from the current entity to the model itself. We call the parent object is our model. Okay, same thing for the release portion. One more time, we're going to release the tester 1. Okay, and the advanced option, instead of using associate object, which is the token associated to the current entity, I'm going to pass on to the one level up, pass on this to model level. So this is a very important concept for this. And so once we done that, we can actually prevent the entity incoming. So see the data entry portion, the servers still keep busy and no entity can come in until it turn into available. Now we're going to add another process, okay, to this. Come back to the process, add in another, call this guy process busy. Here I'm just going to copy one of those, actually assign busy. Status during the process here. Okay, and I'm going to run it through right before processing. Okay, now we can see that fairly quick. So during the process, it will show busy, and then going to from busy going to data entry, from data entry come back to available, and so on and so forth. However, this is what we've done for only for one tester. How can we generalize these two for all 3 testers? That's the goal for this example. Let's take a look. As we say, we're going to using a tokenized process to own this. So here we're going to start adding a token, and this token we're going to call token, just my token. And I'm going to adding 2 variable. One is integer, we call which row, and the other one is object reference. Okay, should be a object. So here, which call that which tester. Okay. So we're using these 2 as the input process. Let's take a look. Go back here. For this process, I need them to be able to generalize for all 3 testing station. So here, instead of we're going to call this event, we're going to change advanced option. The token class name is using the so-called entity related token. I'm going to using my token. There's the token I just defined it, customize, and I can add an input parameter. First one is going to call I'm going to type a little bit different. Row number, okay. Which means which of the status label number we're going to use. Description, I'm going to tie to which row, okay. Second, I'm going to adding, okay, which testing station. Okay. I'm going to tie it into which tester. Make sense? All right. So I'm adding these two, one telling which row of the status label I'm going to change. And second is which testing resource I'm going to seize and release. So here I'm going to do, instead of 1 right here, I'm going to change to my token, which row. Okay. Same thing for here. My token, which row. And also the seize portion, instead of seize a specific only test 1, I'm going to seize my token, which tester. Release is the same thing. My token, which tester. All right. Therefore, coming down here is when I call this so-called process data entry, I need to let them know which test row it is, the first row, and which tester it is. So it should be server test 1. Okay. I'm going to copy this over for tester 2. Copy that over for tester 3. This is going to be the second label. This is going to be the third label. It's down a little bit so we have more room. Move this down a little bit so we have more room. Okay. And also, I would like to change the busy portion as well to my token process. Okay. So changing that to be a token process. I'm going to change that to my token. Okay. And also, this is really easy. I only need one row number tied into which row only. So I don't have to using all the input parameters since I just need to do one. And here you see that at the bottom over here, I just say 1 and the error message disappear. Okay. And same thing, I need to change this. Okay. Now we can do this for tester 2 before processing. Going to run that. For processing busy, going to using the second row, and this part after process, exit, I'm going to using the process data entry. Down here, row number should be 2, and this should be tester 2. Okay, similar situation for tester 3. Before processing, we're going to change that to processing busy. And this is number 3 row. And exit portion. What I'm going to do for data entry portion. This is for the third. And this part is going to use for tester 3. Okay, so we're using one generic process, and we can now process all 3. This. Okay, you see each one of them got changed to busy status. And each one of them has a data processing process, and the label changed correctly, and they seize and release the resources correctly. So we conclude this section. We'll come back to talk about 8.6 to begin with.